So the next question I have for you is, what do you believe about the people who voted opposite of you?
I can certainly understand how the affluent that are well heeled and rich would have voted the way that they voted
Sure.
because it's in their best interest. But the others, I will never understand that. I understand the psychology that's associated with it, but I will never understand how physically the people could do that. To me, there are three classes of welfare. There is the corporate welfare, and then there's the welfare that we understand. But
Right.
the majority of the people within that welfare system that are receiving funds are white. We
Right.
want to make sure that everyone understands it. If you take I don't know what the percentage, because I
Sure.
haven't gotten into it, but I'm sure that there's a small percentage of Black people that are on welfare. We're talking transfer of payments if we get into the economics of it. So the biggest transfer of payments are definitely going to corporations because
Right.
they're getting funding for something that they're not paying for. It's no exchange.
In corporate America, the ethos is to avoid paying taxes so you can keep more of your profit. Yet some of these corporations that you're talking about get government subsidies, contracts, or even bailouts, leaving us individuals out, right?
Right.
Okay. Excellent point.
I always want to say something nice about something. And it's not about Trump's economy. I was reading an article the other day about Mackenzie Phillips. It's Bezos' pick wife. Someone was saying something negative about her because she had only given away 17 billion of the 58 billion that she has.
Right.
I'm looking at them saying,
Right.
are you serious?
Right.
How much Jeff and Elon Musk and all of those guys how many billions that have been given away?
And to nonprofit organizations, right?
Yes, to those that haven't been able to access the funding. Many of them have not been able to access the funding. So there are three organizations here in Charlotte that have access to this funding.
Sure.
And they're doing well because they're not being told. I just think that there needs to be more Mackenzie Phillips,
Sure.
Melinda Gates.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing that if you create this big machine around it, the bulk of the money will not get to where it's needed.
I hear you.
And that's what she has done, is take the machine out of it. There is a small organization, and I'm sure that it's going to get larger, but 17 billion in 5 years, man, that's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. And you understand that because you were part of the organization I was a part of, the NAACP of Snohomish County, for many years.
Yeah.
You saw that organization from start to when it started to receive, six-figure grants to do the work that they do, right? You were there that entire time. And you've helped other organizations reach those levels and more. And the machine you're talking about, there's a question about government efficiency and really just the efficiency of services being provided to folks, right? With every grant, there's administrative costs to administer a program, right? There's marketing, accommodations for your target demographic to be able to take advantage of what said organization is offering. And what you're saying is that there needs to be more people who recognize where there can be efficiencies in that whole system so that the people who are in need or the recipients of said services get more rather than it going through that whole system.
Because for the most part, they're underfunded. My example would be, I talk about them because I'm still on an advisory board with Fred Hutz. That Hutz gave the Communities of Color Coalition funding to do a small survey, but it was to the nail. Every dollar that you spent should be recognized as going towards that event. Right. Nothing for administration. Whoever ran it for free.
Right.
And
that's how it works.
But they can turn around and say, hey, I contributed money to the community. In
Right.
reality, they have made the community worse off because they gave the funding to them, but didn't give them enough funding to actually do a decent job.
And when we talk about decent job, we're talking about having the staff to focus on said project. And so you have like situations like the NAACP where it's an all volunteer organization, volunteer, mind you, at least on the local branch level, who might receive funds to provide a service, and the funders expecting all that money to go to the service without the reality that it costs money to do said service by the organization. It's almost like dangling some bait to say, we do want to help you, but behind the scenes, we're not actually funding enough for the people who are administering to even pay their bills. And so you create a facade of service and help that is not comprehensive and is not addressing the real needs of the community, which a lot of times is jobs and enough money to live.
And that is the area. The only way, because there are two main types of funding in nonprofits. And there is restricted and unrestricted funds. The restricted funds, which is what I got for Fred Hutch, they can only go towards this. And they tell you from the beginning, $0 for administration, because it's such a small grant. And the larger grants, they will tell you how much you can spend on administrative costs. I look at it and say, how often as a person that has gotten awarded millions of dollars of unrestricted funds, it's difficult to turn around and put that in context, because if you've got so much restricted funds, you start shaving corners. That's where you get in trouble.
Right.
Get in trouble because guess what? The government comes back and says, hey, we want to audit you. We want to audit you, or we want to look at your taxes, the way that you did your taxes. Because you spent this amount of money, but you only are paying this amount of tax. And in many instances, no tax. And the government doesn't like that. And as a small individual firm or organization, you can't do that. You can't account for it because you have no overhead for the audit, the folks that are coming in to make sure that the folks that you hire understand how to put stuff down on paper and the accountability.
Look in trouble.
After many organizations get going, they get shut down because they've been pencil whooped.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like if the government's saying you need to have the appropriate documentation to justify this expense, but the money to train people in the timeline of the grant funding, some of those things get missed. And so you got organizations just hustling to get this money out or to help people, and they might not have done all of the necessary administrative work. And so they're now put in a precarious position when they were just trying to help people.
That is true. But I want to tie this back into the political now.
Sure.
When you have enough money, you can spend to keep the wolves off of you.
Right.
You spend and spend until you get a good enough deal to where you can let it go. But if you're a smaller organization, you can't do that because it bankrupts you.
In some of those audits you were talking about, I mean, it costs $100,000 to do an audit like that.
And the government doesn't pay for it.
And you almost can't even write those specific expenses off. Like you can't use grant funding for tax audits and stuff. And that's a huge expense that you have to be prepared for.
If you get any type of federal or state grant, you better be prepared to be audited, or you better do your own audit before it's asked.
Right. Right. So you can share that information. I hear you. And so, tying that back to the politics, we're talking about a system that has been perpetuated through time and has in some ways seemed to have started the process to evolve and overcome the harms of the past and reconcile those things. But you and I both know it's now being reduced to a movement over the last 10 years. And you got folks itching to get rid of it because it creates accountability around actual fairness and justice for all that some people don't really want to be spread across the board.
Yes.
Wow. What is the worst thing about society to you?
You've answered the question many times over. It's that system.
Okay. So the next question is, what do you believe is one of the reasons that Trump and the largely Republican Congress was elected? Mind you, as of this interview, it has been called that the Republicans control the House. So
Yes. And
propaganda.
Nothing but propaganda. Some of the stuff is so wild and unbelievable, but people believe it.
Right.
From the little old lady saying, oh, he's just saying that he's not going to actually do that when he gets it. Or the person that's saying, that's not possible. We won't allow that to happen. Sitting up what you did.
You want to elaborate?
No.
I gotta, my point is not to exploit ideas or anything like that. It's really to share ideas and share perspectives, because for me, ever blind, I believe I'm realizing I truly believe that people saw the moral argument presented in the 2024 election. And I believe that people cared about that. And, and that's where I was sorely mistaken, because people really care about Maslow's hierarchy and needs, shelter and basic needs. And people need money in their pocket to be able to live. It is expensive. I envy you because you're in one of those states that probably has a lot cheaper gas than over here at Washington. It's expensive to live.
Yeah, but I drive an electric car. The thing about the morality of it not the Republicans or the Democrats that got us into this mess. It's the system as a whole, and no one really wanting to take any action on it.
Right.
You've got
it's too big to change.
Correct. As long as you've got the billionaires, let's take Miami-Dade County and Fort. That's a good example. They have 30 billionaires live in that area. It skews the economy so much because while they have their minimum wage is all service connected.
Right.
They don't have. So it's a system of haves and have-nots. What are the have-nots going to do? They're going to steal, borrow, and everything that they can to make a living and to make life better for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're not going to focus on the systems that keep them there.
No.
Right.
Exactly. 30 billionaires in one county, and skews them to where it's saying that the average person is making something like $64,000 a year. When you take those 30 billionaires out of there, and it comes to something like $25,000 to $35,000 a year.
And that's really important. Miami-Dade and that specific example is relatively isolated. There's a few pockets around the United States, I'm sure, where that's consistent.
Can you say Redmond? Can you say Redmond?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Can you say Redmond? Can you say Everett for that matter?
Sure.
You have those folks that have fun, that have paper on, and some of them don't even have paper anymore. They're just living off of their name. But look at you're complaining about how much housing costs. Sure. Think about that. Why is housing that much? Because of few people that became affluent jacked up the prices.
Right.
How much should a house cost? A house costs as much as a person is willing to pay for. If you're not willing to pay for that house at that price, it doesn't cost that much. But if you're willing to pay for it, then your buddy sees it. He jacks his up. His buddy sees it. He jacks his up because they become profiteers. And so you're creating a cycle that fits within a system. I'm using Miami-Dade because of the disparity.
Sure,
But
sure.
I'm also saying that these folks living on tip wages here
Yeah, yeah.
in North Carolina, and there are a lot of them that live on tip wages here. You pay a tip for everything. I can remember when Starbucks would never allow you to tip anyone.
That's right.
It wouldn't allow you. Now they got a tip jar out. And in fact, when you run your card through, they ask you, how much of a tip do you want? 15, 20, or 25?
That's right.
And I went into one restaurant and they didn't even have the 10 or the 15. They started out at 20%.
Wow.
They started out at 20% and said 20, 30, or 40 or more.
Oh, wow.
And there was a restaurant. Of course, I'm not going to tell you the name of the restaurant, but nonetheless, but I ate good. And it was on somebody else's dime.
But no, I hear what you're saying.
But it is that kind of thing that the folks are not understanding. They keep wanting to blame the Democrats for prices going up. It is a collection of both of those houses, both Republicans and Democrats, that are making life so miserable for us. Because there are just as many billionaire Democrats as there are billionaire Republicans.
And they're the ones that are controlling the prices. That's an excellent point. But you look at Trump's closest allies, one of the richest men in the world, it's hard to believe there won't be an economic benefit for them under this. We all know it. But the people who don't benefit from that or who are still in the service industry or scraping by to live, they're still in that psychological bubble fighting for the wrong things.
The government right now is benefiting from Elon Musk. They're benefiting from him because SpaceX and his satellite system, they pay him billions of dollars a year right now to use. And he's giving it to them. And because he's the only one, he's monopolizing that space. And the only one that is, he's in a position to jack the price anytime he wants.
That's right.
And now he's going to be an efficiency expert. There's nothing efficient about him. The only thing that's efficient about him is he monopolized. I'm saying this as someone that bought one of his cars. At the time, he built the best electric vehicle that's out there.
Right.
He did. Yeah. It's no longer true, but he's still benefiting from building that first.
That's what you're saying.
And look at all the billions of dollars that they had to put into the competition. Who is his main competition right now? Who's not even selling a third of the cars, maybe not even 10% of the cars.
Are you talking about Rivian?
Not Rivian. The best vehicle that's out there is, gosh, I can't think of the name. I was just looking at it because I can't afford to buy one. But anyway, they're owned by the Saudis.
Okay, I see.
It's an American, U.S. built car, but it's owned by the Saudis. So you got a choice of doing business with the Saudis or business with Elon Musk. Which one are you going to hold your nose to? And that's what I'm saying. He's just a different, the word I want to use is nutty. Both of them are nuts. Two nuts in a jar that you can't really tell the difference, which one is which.
The next question is, do you feel like you did enough to affect the election in the way you wanted to see it go?
No, I didn't. I want to blame it on my health issues. The reality is that I still talk to a number of folks out there. I wouldn't say that I know more than a dozen people, but all those dozen people that I know, they're like-minded.
Sure.
And that's the difficulty of it. We get so comfortable preaching to the choir that we don't go out doing anything new. And it's hard to talk to a brainwashed person.
The last question is, what do you want to say to the version of yourself 4 years in the future?
Making it happen.
Okay. Again, thank you, Ben, for your time and your perspective. It's obviously very much treasured to me. And so in conclusion for this episode, we are all different, but we are also the same. What matters is we recognize that and move forward to make a better world for all of us. So thank you so much, Ben.
Good to talk to you, Louis.